broadcast live.
Wanted to enter it. I went to competitions, and at school I won. I took first place until I came to the provincial part. I took first to the whole South Africa.
Unbelievable. Now, your surname, Ndlozi, is obviously Zulu.
Yes.
English is what language? How many languages do you speak?
I speak probably 2 languages or 3 languages. It's my mother tongue, which is Zulu, and I'm studying Sotho at school, and then English, my second language.
English is your second language.
Yes.
And how are you doing in Sotho?
I'm doing very well. Very well.
And what is very well?
No, I'm doing good.
We call on the Chief Justice to re-evaluate this decision and move that commission to a public building, a university or a community hall. We must further express disappointment at the elite venues at which commissions are ordinarily always placed at. Justice must have a humble, accessible image, accessible particularly to our people who are the rank and file in society.
Good, doctor. Thank you. I've embarked on a journey right now. This journey that I'm on, it's a musical journey, an artistic journey. The first step of this artistic journey has been putting out a project called Mbuzi Level, which is a mixtape, which is leading to the album, which is titled Mbuzi In The Water.
Okay.
There's a lot of similarities to the titles and what the actual cultural representation of the Mbuzi is.
Gotcha.
I thought it was very important to also celebrate people I consider goats, and you are definitely one of my favorite goats to ever do it. I think how you do your thing is, it seems like you were born to do this. And I'd like to take this moment and have a conversation and just engage you on a couple of things on how your journey started, what it's about, you know?
I feel under a lot of pressure, obviously. And firstly, I thought this good thing you're doing to,
thank you,
to think about your own work in the way that you're doing, so that this thinking about your work with others is in itself an intellectual project. I'm hoping that we can rise to whatever expectation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. One thing I always wanted to ask, like, from watching you in different spaces, one thing that I identified that's very powerful is that you don't have a politician's accent, you have an African accent.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say African accent, I mean like South Africans don't have a specific accent that if somebody bumps into you in America, they can tell you're South African. Because there's so many tribes, there's so many dialects. But you have an African accent that across board, as an African, you understand that this word said in English has to come from an African dialect. I can't specifically say which one, but it comes from an African dialect. Can you tell me why? Was that something that you did, that you done consciously, or something that just happened?
To be educated in South Africa, to live in South Africa, to have to do public speaking, I do think that one has inevitably been shaped by different accents. So I wasn't taught English by whites. But I do live in a white-dominated world, in a world in which the white languages are the ones that get you cultural, social capital. I do remember a very conscious struggle with accent as a young person. So there used to be these debates, which we would sometimes take them out of the township to go and debate with multiracial schools. And then you sort of meet black kids that speak
with the...
And then sometimes we used to confuse that with either that is to be smart, it was to have to sound like that. But I mean, I think if you are shaped in that world, if white people taught you how to speak English, they must have signatured themselves on your tongue.
True.
So I cannot say that the accent is not part of of these worlds. It certainly is. We would be in denial to not accept that there is a way that we speak and we sound and we want to pronounce, which can be interpreted to be a political accent, a language of agitation, a language of political discourse. Certainly there is. And maybe indeed I do have it, as you say.
We have adopted a musical culture which is hip-hop, but finding our musical identity throughout the years has been a very interesting journey. It has its ups and downs. There was a moment when it peaked, when it was translated as New Age Kwaito, when it was people felt more comfortable because we had adopted something that was locally produced. But when you look at the history of Kwaito, history of Pantsula, it still draws back to America. Kwaito is hip-hop. Kabelo was a rapper. He used to construct verses. Zola was a rapper. You know, he got on Ghetto Scandalous with other rappers, and his finishing line was, that was literally him saying, okay, I see what you guys are doing, but I'm also doing the same thing. The only difference is I'm doing it this way, you know? So one thing that I think was the biggest problem, or is the biggest problem, is the separation. In terms of saying, this is this and this is that. You guys are here and you guys are here.
Yeah.
So if we say, this is the musical community, even with, I was having this conversation with a couple of friends of mine. I was like, our biggest export musically in South Africa is dance. We move with dance, regardless of wherever the music is from. If it's dance, South Africans move. It's magical. There was a time in South Africa where Kuduru was huge, and Kuduru is from Angola. There was a time in South Africa where Kwasa Kwasa was everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Music was different in South Africa.
True. True.
What people were listening to in the 80s.
Bubblegum.
Yeah, they shifted. The perspective, and with them came a whole set of other benefits. Certain relationship with the body and how it appears in public.
True.
Certain relationship with the language of public discourse, of rage, the language of rage, but also the language of desire. But of course, it had its own disadvantages of misogyny, of the place of the woman, which still haunts hip-hop.
It haunts hip-hop in an extreme way, because there's certain terms called rap life. And within rap life, there's rap rules and the way people carry themselves, whether male or female. And everybody shows up to rap life and plays their rap part.
I see.
And it's very hard to explain to somebody who's never experienced rap life that what I'm speaking on is rap life. It's not me sitting at home growing up in a well-balanced family where my mother is there, my sister is there, my aunt is there, we go to church every Sunday, everything is balanced, and my father is there. And he does not argue with my mom, he does not do this, he does, you understand what I'm saying? And everything is fine, and I'm writing on perspective of rap life, or and speaking on women a certain way, or addressing certain things a certain way. It's literally like some of these people that speak the way they speak or rap the way they rap is life experiences. Others, what I've realized, what I've come to learn is that some people is the life they desire to have, even if it's bad.
No, it's true, because we just had a stupid debate with Tulima Donsela about the cliques thing. And she says it's unconscious bias. As if to say unconscious bias means it's not racism. But the unconscious, the things that we deeply think about, people, places, groups, pop out. They can surprise us. They have surprise moments and the place for that is the arts. In a painting, someone's racism can come out. In a joke. Because of the entire libidinal performance and libidinal energy But that's good when it finally comes out so that it can be addressed.
True.
But if it has a life of silence, we have to call something out and then deal with it. We are unable to close the door and deal with rape behind closed doors.
True.
Then rape always, you know, takes us by surprise because we don't want to openly deal with why do you rape? Why do you hate women? Why do you... So that then culture improves.
True.
And becomes a better culture. I think the missed opportunity there, you know, because once that masculinist, misogynist energy of hip-hop came into the public spectacle, the opportunity to then deal with it was abound. And it needed a counter within the movement itself.
True.
A counter pushback.
A different perspective.
I think some women did. Who was that woman that used to rap with Biggie Smalls?
Lil Kim.
Lil Kim. She used to talk about...
She was... Her raps were like strong, streets, hypersexual.
I am okay.
Yeah.
Like, one of the big things about women oppression is that they are not supposed to be beings that desire sex.
True.
That can say, I want sex.
True.
If they do that, then they hoes.
True.
Then they bitches. Then they are prostitutes there. You understand? No, you mustn't ask for sex.
You must
What is your problem?
Yeah,
so they can't own their desire. I think Lil Kim did that.
She
like,
did
it's
that.
okay
True.
to want to be sexy and then to feel comfortable in your body.
True.
And to want sex.
Yes.
Why not?
Why not?
Why should it be the reserve of men to only desire sex? No, women too want sex.
True.
They feel, and that is okay. It should not be pathologized. And I think we still find difficulty with accepting that is okay.
It's very...
As beings that can own up to their desire, particularly sexual desire. And that I think was powerful because it was a good response to the sort of sexualized, objectivized body of a woman in hip-hop, which was in whose place had been a marginalized place.
True.
She was like, you're not going to make me feel guilty and feel bad for feeling and wanting to be sexy and wanting sex and saying, I want this man. He's proper. That is okay. And we still find difficulty not associating that with some pathology. That no. You know, as a guy, the first fear that we deal with when we grow up, I think this is where it's at in my view. One of the things in our exchange, masculinizing each other,
big facts.
Because siyabasaba.
Ungabishi man.
Because siyabasaba.
Kakul.
But the true thing that you feel is that when you love someone, when someone moves you, you get scared. You're like, ish. And then to approach, to say how you feel.
It's hard.
It's
very difficult.
Majority of the destructive masculinist behavior comes out of not properly resolving that fear. Because some to avoid that fear, they then become violent.
That is true.
That's why one man on the street, you'll find it very difficult for them to when they flayed, hello. But if they sit in a street corner, then they harass girls as they pass, because it requires a lot of and then when they've gathered that courage, when they've normalized, then they can do it alone. I think there's something there in our culture, the cultural tools to deal with that. Create destructive men.
I agree. I always say to any present action or behavior, what is the genesis of your, if you behave like this, where do you come from and what are your experiences growing up? A lot of little boys are taught that you can only engage with a woman or a girl as the boy.
Yeah, on the condition that you are superior.
Yeah, as the boy. You are the boy. It's not like Usman Banambizingekama. You are always the boy.
Yeah.
You know,
the man.
The man, like, you're doing this. Let's do this. Let's go here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to go there. Let me buy you this.
Yeah.
And they don't understand it's like, if you are comfortable with being around women, just the comfort of being around women will change so much in behavior, because the one thing that I've always tried to address or tried to stress is that rape is a lifestyle. These people live this lifestyle. They subscribe to this lifestyle. They go to certain spaces where they know there are other people who live this lifestyle. It's not, no one who's never been interested in this lifestyle will wake up and do it. They know each other. All these people know each other at parties, at bus stops, all these people know each other. They can, a rapist can spot another rapist a mile away, the same way as a soccer player you can see just by stance that guy probably plays. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And these are things that we ignore, especially as a machita, to say, Yazin, Mina, if my friend lives this lifestyle, I'm not a part of this lifestyle. And excuse yourself from this lifestyle, but also
cut the friendship.
Cut the friendship.
Yes.
Cut the friendship.
Yes.
Because because what I always say is that, like, it sounds cliche, birds of a feather flock together, but it's unfortunate. That's always the case.
Yeah, I get you.
If it doesn't affect you now, at some point it will affect you. Maybe if you didn't rape, you will be in the same house where somebody gets raped, but you're okay with it.
Yeah, it's true. It is true.
You know? And those are things that as guys, we don't want to acknowledge. We don't want to just say that, hey, if you did something like this, let me address it with you. And yes, as umhlobo wam, I might not cut you off, especially if we engage on it and you understand that you have done something wrong.
Hey, hip hop needs to help us because as a force in society, it has certainly the attention of a lot of men.
True.
And it doesn't mean it rests entirely on the hip hop culture. It's also in other musical genres.
True.
And it also is the responsibility of politics. You know, politics, because it's publicly held accountable. There are quotas, there are legislations, there are all sorts of things going on in Parliament of South Africa. There's lots of very, very powerful women who enter that space and they become themselves, and they know they can get this and that position. That pushback has to also take in the form of culture. I don't like that reservation of the public space. That's where we do gender equality, but we go to the home and then we accept nonsense.
That's
when we go to parties, when we go to all types of gatherings, we don't want to translate the principle of gender equality, even in the bedroom, even in that space of the thin line between pain and pleasure, between yes and no, and all of that. We have to work hard to create equality even in those spaces. It's not about it being a thing of the law. It must
be a way of life.
It must be multiplied into all aspects of our lives to heal or to break out of, because certainly is a breaking, to break out of sexist and misogynistic, I think, attitudes and ways of being.
I've been listening to The King's Disease by Nas, his recent album, and magical. Like, you know, how he addresses the woman.
Yeah.
You know, grown, matured, like it makes me feel a certain way. It makes me feel good to be with my woman.
Yeah.
Like listening to it with her and driving around evokes emotions that only we know. And if we're in the middle of a crowd and I say a certain line from the album, she knows exactly what I mean. So I think with South Africa, we're also very scared to speak your mind, your realest and purest mind, and just say, this is how I actually feel, or this is how I actually see X, Y, Z. Sometimes X, Y, Z might not be the right way, and sometimes it might not be the wrong way, but that opinion could change some guy who thinks that way, his whole mindset on how he behaves.
Yeah. Agreed.
You know?
I agree.
Because
100%.
he understands exactly how I say it. That's how, for me, when I say, I love your politics, is because you speak it how I understand it. Like, I can never sit and watch other politicians. It's just weird. I'm not gonna lie, it's just weird. But I can sit and watch you.
I got you.
Because of how you address it. There's wit, there's punchlines, there's charisma, there's, you know, there's swag to it. Where it's like, yes, I agree. They must change that. That's not right, you know?
Yeah.
It changes a perspective in how we consume a lot of products, you know? And I feel like a lot of kids need to be taught from a young age that it's okay to be different.
Yeah.
It's okay to not like what everybody likes, and it's okay to sometimes not like at all.
I always say this, being in parliament is very...
How does it feel?
It's very difficult.
It's like parliament, the dome of your industry. Like F&B. Is it the F&B?
Because that's all of us are there. But I think, you know, I didn't want to go to parliament. And then, you know, the CIC, I remember this because it was a moment of, where they sat me down, they're like, no, you've got to go. I was like, that place. And we all feel like that about it, because when they were in the youth league, there was always like, oh, let's send the youth league president and all of that. Like, hi. Because from afar, and now that I'm in there, it's hard for our energy. I don't think most people who have, most activists would easily like just want to be in parliament. No. And maybe now that, you know, we had to shake that entire slumber decorums of slumber. You know, where we are somnambulists, putting each other into sleep. We had to shake a bit, you know, because we're making laws, things that have impact on people's lives. Debate has to be robust, authentic. And then if also it's the space of holding each other accountable, we can't patronize each other. You know, honorable, but you are busy in corrupt patronage activities of putting your kids, your friends, you know, in all types of beneficiary positions. But also it's not easy to tell abantu abadala, because they are not grown like that. We always have to act outside of the norms. If you go to our families, ekhaya, they don't teach disrespect. It's actually very good people. They are very good people. Abantu basekhaya, abantu benhlonipho, and all of that. They hardly even swear. Abantu bayathandaza. Even at the highest forms of drinking, there is always an insistence on respect and all of that. And my grandmother and my there are elders in my family. There are people who are older than those people in parliament in my family. So of course, the first reaction is to try and treat them the same way.
True.
Until you have to remember that I'm not acting as myself. We are representing. So they're like young men. This young man, this child. But there are people who are 85 who voted for the EFF, who said, please go to parliament for us. And in their name, I'm going to tell Zuma that, Chief, you're not honorable. You understand? Hey, Uzobona and I can't be protected by decorum. I'm going to be confronted about my actions, and I'm going to have to respond properly. Otherwise, I'm going to be told that I'm speaking nonsense. And that is important. That sharpening of contradictions was critical because it was becoming slumber town. It had become slumber town. We had to, they say, disrupt. I think it's okay.
Make it shake.
We had to disrupt that whole space to make it a more real space, a more authentic space. A space people can relate to as they should, as a place in which decisions are made with implications on their lives. They have to be concerned what happens there. So we also have to conduct ourselves in ways that show that people's lives are impacted by the things we do here. And that shaking was critical. And it must become the permanent activity of parliamentary public discourse. It must be robust.
It must.
Yeah, not those things of gentlemanism and all of that. So I don't know. I mean, from time to time, we've had to shake it up. We're not going to be the generation that accepted the status quo. We're going to go down as the generation, whether we succeed in our demands or not, but because we rebelled, that's all. We are registering into the historic moment. The next ones may succeed in what we failed, but what we're not going to fail to do is to rebel.
True.
To demand the land, to demand the entire package of economic freedom.
When you go to parliament, do you prepare almost like how a rapper would prepare for battle?
What takes preparation for what? For a concert, for a performance?
No. So you get I'm not even talking concert level, because concert level, I would compare that to when you do a speech.
Okay.
And then parliament, because you're engaging with other people, I would compare it to battle rapping, where you have a list of your points.
Yeah, there are moments like that. State of the nation, address. We even say before that the president must fire the minister like Pravin Gordhan. Or we're going to have to talk about this matter during the State of the Nation. Then they promise us lashing, physical lashing.
Wow.
We will be physically removed. And during the process of physical removal, those guys beat us up. And those guys are professional hooligans, They grow muscle because their job is to push people around, to silence us. But a revolutionary's relationship with violence against them or with death is like, Jesus' relationship with death. Jesus said, nobody takes my life. I give my life. We already kind of conceptualize the lives of black people as death lives, as lives that are so close to death.
Constantly.
That you shouldn't be trying to reserve. You should fight for a better life. We prepare. We also like have to write questions. We have to phrase them.
Is there like any particular punchline or particular statement that you've made that you were like, this one was the one?
I don't know.
You see that one?
There are moments where the president shocks me. You know, Malema is... I spent a lot of time with him. As a spokesperson, I sometimes, have to prepare this and that written piece. And then he will tell me, these are the angle, this is the angle, this is the argument, this is the point, and you do the labor. And so you give him the script. And he still shocks you. And you're like, this guy, I live with him, We travel together, we spend a lot of time, but dude, I'll be in the room where he's addressing, and I'll be like, yo. And I remember in those moments, Commander-in-Chief. A good speech, I certainly experience good speeches like music. The last speech of Martin Luther King, he spoke in a rally of sanitation workers. And then he came to Tennessee, and then they said there's a storm warning. So when there's a storm warning, the idea is that the event might not happen. So he relaxed at the hotel, it's like, maybe it might not happen. And the phone call came in, like, despite the storm warning, Martin, the room, you have to come.
You have to come.
So there you go. You must watch that speech.
I'll check it out.
He was killed the next day. He was assassinated outside the hotel the next day. So the last speech, it's called the mountaintop speech, where he said, I've been to the mountaintop. It doesn't matter with me now. I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land.
God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
When you experience it, even on a video, Chief, I experience it like a great musical product. The speech of the CIC at Mama Winnie Mandela's funeral.
I remember we spoke briefly on that.
Okay, like I trusted that the president there is a more Chief. But still, I wanted to pick up a chair. And you understand? Now you look at him, Mama. Mama.
It's our mother. We know her. We will celebrate Winnie Mandela forever, for as long as we are still alive. Name the Cape Town Airport Winnie Mandela Airport. Thank you.
We felt that we are saying that. Because that's what a song, music ceases to be about the person in front singing. We find ourselves like it is inviting. It is certainly you find yourself going along. A great speech has that impact. That's the only connection. The only way I can describe this connection you are asking about. I've had a great moment with hip hop. There was a time we were doing budget vote 1, which is the budget about the president, so Zuma. And then the leadership was not around. Then they said to me, look, you will speak. So I prepared something. But during the discussion, something that we didn't expect happened. And then we needed to deal with it.
What was this thing?
In the beginning, before the debate started, I stood and I said, Parliament channel is off. As speaker, before we proceed, we need Parliament channel to be on so that what is happening here, our people in the homes have access to. So Mzwandile Masina, during his input, mocked that moment. It's like, Mr. Parliament, if you want to be an actor, we'll get you into TV. We can speak to NAVF to put you in one of the movies, maybe Generations. And then the CIC said, no, Mbuyiseni, you can't let that go. He is texted. So I went outside. He's like, you must deal with him. Says you must deal with him. So I revised. It's the moment I quoted Rick Ross.
Okay.
That's how Rick Ross came into my speech. It was to respond to Mzwandile. So there's one of my favorite Rick Ross songs is the song where he says, we build it ground up, you got it renovated.
Yeah.
When my people's there. I can't recall.
I think I'm Big Mish.
Big Mish. Larry Hoover.
Yeah.
We are self-made. He just bought it affiliated. You're just affiliated. You bought it, we built it ground up, as they say, and you got it renovated and you still killed it. Which reminds me of a man in a township so-called Skanzonzo.
So that's when hip-hop was very useful for me. Because it was about the youth, like, true. Dude, like
that is your
Tina, we're building the EFF from why here over something we built from scratch.
Yes.
And uhleli lapha when you are affiliated, we're self-making here. We're taking it from the ground up. You get what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, who doesn't want to be part of us?
Do you think that was the moment you feel like you hit like?
That's the moment hip hop saved me. Hip hop gave me articulation.
I see.
Yeah, it gave me the words to say something.
I see.
You understand that that had to be said. That
yes.
Don't. There's 25 seats in the house. In a house of 400 people. But listen to our voice,
please. We all have our spirit animal or our spirit who is constantly there and saying, this is where we're going.
Yeah, like,
yeah. And I feel like when you explain the journey to that moment, it's literally, you hit your Mbuzi level where it was like, you first were listening to
Mbuzi level.
Yeah, you hit your Mbuzi level where you were listening to Tupac. It's talking about literally what he's going through. How many brothers fell victim to the streets?
Yeah.
You know? Rest in peace, y'all niggas, there's a heaven for a G. And then when he does what he does, it's like, you are a victim of what you are, the position you are in, you're just a victim of it. You're not in control of your destiny. What we've built here is ground up, and we are in control of our destiny.
You know the powerful thing there in that song, Tupac says, in Tina, in our funeral, nobody cries when we die. Like, celebrate.
Yes.
Because we're not gonna leave 1 ounce of our lives unlived.
Yes.
We're gonna leave all of it.
Yes.
Every moment will be a moment to live.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, kiss me from my head to my toes. Give me a cup.
You're killing it right now. You know,
No, hip hop.
I definitely think you're a bigger hip hop connoisseur than you regard yourselves to be. On God.
No, I mean, I've come across real people on that score.
Mm-hmm.
It really, I'm a black youth, and there's no way you can be a black youth who was born in the 80s and have not. You cannot come across hip hop and your life doesn't change.
Facts.
Most of us, I'm a child that grew up when the genres of the youth were making, serious impact. All those genres,
the revolution.
All those are very, very young people, very young people. I saw Beyonce's Black is King. I loved it. I mean, I waited for it. I watched it. I loved it. But afterwards, I had to ask myself, why? What is it? They were certainly powerful, all of that music was great. And then the dance, yes. But rebellion, Chief. I thought rebellion was missing.
But don't you think that the rebellion was missing based on the fact that it's a perspective on, it's a first world perspective on what we are?
No, see, I keep saying to people, the mistake with that starting point is to think Beyonce is not African. That's a big mistake. And also is to think Africa is this one, is the only continent in the world that is treated as a country. And everything and everyone is the same.
Is the same.
Africa is never allowed to have diversity. It is just Africa, Africans. But it's not allowed universality.
True.
It's not allowed globalness. Yet Africa is everywhere.
And Africa is everything.
You understand? So I don't think it will be fair that your starting point in critiquing Beyonce's Black is King is to write her out of Africa. That is to do exactly what the white people hoped when they were capturing and transporting over the Atlantic black slaves. They wanted to erase them, break them off, and render them as pure waste.
Yeah.
No, she is part of us. And she is testimony of the fact that you cannot crush an African spirit. She's testimony that we didn't get finished. Slavery, Jim Crow, the ghettos. It's still difficult. We're not talking about some distant past when we're talking about anti-black racism. It is very rife and alive in the US. But even to this day, it doesn't succeed to eliminate us. Beyonce's Black is King is testimony. I think you can say the rest, but do not erase her out of the African narrative and out of the African experience. She is black, Chief. She is off the continent. So I wouldn't agree to that xenophobic thing. I mean, particularly for people who sing the South African national anthem, I wouldn't take you serious. You writing Beyonce off. Beyonce is part of that. I mean, these are people who sing this stem with passion, and they're going to tell me Beyonce is not part of it. These are people
who sing this stem with the passion,
accept, celebrate middle-class salaries where they are paid far much less than their white counterparts for doing the same job.
Big fact.
They don't fight that thing.
Yeah.
They don't demand anything.
They're grateful.
And then you come with your middle-class chicken audacity And you say Beyonce is not part of us. Are you kidding me? Beyonce is not a Western perspective on us. No.
And that was literally was going to take me to my next point, that mindset is the same thing that breaks us in South Africa in terms of how like middle class consumes music that comes from different spaces of South Africa. You know, they won't listen to music from the townships unless it becomes the umbrella of it all. Until it's literally everywhere, where it's like, okay, I turn on TV, here's the song. Radio, here's the song. My son or my daughter comes back from school, they are singing the lyrics of the song. Now it's everywhere.
You know, in the university, there are these departments of literature, and then there's like African literature. So one day, I thought to myself, what do people do there in this African literature? I got closer. There, all of that, the literary criticism, it's all based on novels, poems of Africans, but that are written in English. That's not bad. I'm not saying it's wrong or anything. But it did bother me, because in the English literature department, the classics is Shakespeare, you know? And then you get closer to that space, you realize, no, indeed, Shakespeare is a brilliant writer. But Shakespeare is not read there, the university per se. They start reading Shakespeare in high school. That made me think, okay, the novel that is being taught at the university, in which is being interrogated and all of that, in the African literature department, you know, I go to the high school and I'm like, those are things we were doing in English. We did them in English. What was African there in the high school was the African languages. Inside African languages were novels, poems, which are not part of the imagination and the substance of what African literature does in the university most of the time.
Wow.
And that is, I think, a best example to describe this problem of...
That is actually the core.
Of music as well. That when we want to do higher education, higher thinking, even the calls for decolonization and all of that have not grappled with the fact that there's actually knowledge production. You know, the African novel, and this is G.O.A.T point, that our people have created stories of, you know, so they will also read French novels, but that are translated in English. They will read German novels, German writers, Kafka, what's his name, the big German, Wolfgang von Goethe.
Sure.
You know, Goethe.
Yeah, I've seen the Goethe.
Yeah, so there's even Goethe Institute. They translate it into English.
Yeah.
So there's
one in Joburg, actually.
Yes, there has to be an investment into translation industry, because then you're going to translate African works to the globe. Even Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom has different translations. It doesn't lose its idiom. And if I had the time, the resources and all of that, I was going to collect all those writers that we were taught, to think about Sesotho, we thought through their works. To think about isiZulu, we thought through their works, to understand isiZulu. And those writers are not the celebrated writers.
At all.
So if you translated their works on one hand, you could have more than, because they wrote in their original African languages. Just like Kafka, who wrote in German.
In German, yeah.
And then were able to access, because stories, experience can be shared. In the story, I'm sharing an experience.
Yes.
So it matters that I use your language to try and share my experience. Isn't music as well like a sharing of some experience of sort?
Yes.
In which, if I am translating something which is a hip-hop song, and I come and I translate it in Kwaito, I'm not really messing up.
No.
I'm translating.
Some would say it's biting, but in it.
Yeah, but if biting has a positive connotation to it.
Hip-hop rappers don't care. Hip-hop community says, no. If
You can't bite.
You can't bite. You can't repeat my words.
So what would I say? As Stilo said.
As Stilo said, I woke up, I went to the shop,
That's very hard.
It's very hard.
Yeah, it's a very high standard.
It's a very tough society to impress. My king, that was like, this chat was incredible.
Yeah, I lost track of time as well.
Me too. That's,
yeah, no, thanks.
Thank you very much.
I hope, in fact, I should wish your next album, the G.O.A.T. You said it's what,
Mbuzi In The Water.
Mbuzi In The Water. I must wish you a great success.
Thank you very much.
In it.
I appreciate it.
I hope that my greatest challenge, my greatest request to constantly the hip-hop community is to help us with deepening consciousness in a progressive way when it comes to gender, when it comes to speaking against black exploitation. Otherwise, I'm happy with hip-hop love, and I think you guys have been certainly securing your place in the music scene in South Africa in interesting ways.
Yes.
So, all the best.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll do well.
Thank you. Thank you for sitting with me. I appreciate it. This has been...
And thanks for inviting me to your house.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I mean, did you see my pets? I've got a couple more, but right now, it's a bit too hot for them to come out when the sun sets a little.
Well, that's the nice views and everything.
You understand?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, my king.
8.
Broadcast live